Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about the future of education. First of all, what is the purpose of education? It is to teach something that will be useful for the future of that person. For example, if we are a nation who whose primary goal is to develop economically, socially, and technologically, we educate our citizens for that future, for that purpose. Because the purpose of schools are to teach human beings to praise what is right, to learn skills. Like, for example, if the person wants to be an engineer, or if the person wants to be a politician, or if the person wants to be a medical doctor, or if the person wants to be a physicist, it's also important for the individual to know the basics of each. Like, for example, oh, it's not because you say you're going to be an airline pilot that you would rather never study biology because biology is completely different from what you're going to be doing for life. Because sometimes when students are taught the basics, they may change their major. For example, I personally when I was in high school, I wanted to be an airline pilot and ended up not being an airline pilot. So I ended up going to the routes of philosophy and science and physics. Now, what we have to understand is that the primary goal of education is to give an overview, summary of everything that there is. All the skills are there, all the situations are there for students to explore. Hands-on activities are also very important. You can have hands-on activities with just about anything. If you're teaching math, you can have pieces, you can have puzzles, you can have challenges, activities that involve hands-on. Like they're not just learning by in a lecture, by just watching the teacher do all the teaching by him or herself. What I see in education today is that we all know, for example, that we landed on the moon 1969, and we have actually made great progress in nanotechnology, in computers and cell phones, satellites in space. But there seems to be a it seems to be to me that we need to better prepare or future generation to the challenges of the 21st century. Like, for example, uh, a school that teaches the students about the needs of the modern world, right? Um, and that involves respecting the teacher, because what we see a lot is a complete disrespect to the teacher. So we could start education for the future as just saying, hello, teacher, so so, whatever his or her name is. Everybody well educated, showing great discipline, wanting to learn, wanting to collaborate with others. Different students learn different in different ways. So that I think we're doing really good. Or, there's always a way to make it better. Like, for example, Uh, we could have activities designed so that no matter what kind of learner you are, you will get it at the end. So if you're a visual learner, we have a picture. If you like to put your hands, we have like a puzzle, or we give you scissors and tape and glue, and you kind of build whatever you're trying to build. If you're more like a reader, we have text explaining the step-by-step process of where you want to get. The goal is to, first of all, the students respecting the teacher, the students uh, showing a high level of discipline. That's the first goal. Especially if you go to, let's say you have a community You have a group of students and they're waiting for the master to enter the room. And when the master enters the room, everybody gets up, says, "Hello, mister," hello, and so forth. This is the most beautiful thing, like this sense of respect. Because you cannot learn anything if you have no respect for the teacher. Seriously. Now, the teacher, on the other hand, should know how to deal with the students. Like I said, we have diverse learners. We have students who may not like the subject, and you try to make it interesting so that no matter what is your idea, what you think you're going to be doing in the future, like it wouldn't matter what career you want to choose for yourself. Like I said earlier in this video, sometimes by going to classes of something unrelated to what you plan doing in the future may lead you to change your mind or to decide doing something else different than you had initially. Because, one thing to understand is that teenagers are still kids, right? So the brain only uh, the brain is only finished developing by the early when people reach their early 20s. So being that the case, um, the years prior to that are tremendously important because as the brain grows and develops, it makes connections between neurons. So what happens in the life of a teenager, what happens in the life of a young adult is tremendously important. It's revolutionary to what this future adult will be doing in the future when the brain finishes developing. If we don't educate kids well enough during that transition, when they reach their early 20s, it can be too late. So it's like running against time so that we can get them focused to what we want them to do. So one thing I observe, even though we have lots of technology, we have the internet, World Wide Web, the greatest invention in the last few decades. Um, the popularization of information, everybody having access to information. We should prepare the adult to to a focus, to a goal, which is go to the moon, land on the moon, cure of diseases, bring peace to the troubled world, the end of poverty, uh, the end of pollution and contamination of the natural world, renewable sources of energy, colonization of space, and also the ocean. Because some people, when they think about progress, they look up into the sky, but they forget that we have, with our current technology, there are regions under the ocean that we have never been to. So we should go, yes, we should explore up there, the skies, but we should also explore down here. Another thing to remember is that there are volcanoes in the world. And certain type of volcanoes, if they erupt, entire nations are gone. So that's another thing to worry. Oh, it's not gonna, I don't care because it's gonna be in 200 years from now. Wrong, because your great grandson will be here. So we gotta design education, preparing them for future cataclysms, natural disasters. And how can we prepare for such thing? Well, a truly advanced civilization would not only build things up there in the sky, satellites, cities, and uh, colonies in the moon and Mars, but a truly developed civilization would be prepared for like, in case there's an earthquake, we have this. In case of a volcanic eruption, we have that. We should plan ahead. Doesn't matter that you're not going to be here in 200 years from now. You got to prepare it now before it's too late. or else it will be too late. Then it's gone. And of course, if you design a form of education where you are preparing this future generation, then of course you're going to be remembered forever. So that's a good thing too, right? Because, oh, so and so thought about this situation. We did what he or she told us to do. And thanks to that, 200 years later, we survive a volcanic eruption. So I'm just giving you an example of how education should be focused. So a state, a government should say, okay, we need to educate these children to prepare for this event in the future. We should prepare this state to have future adults, engineers, to land the man on the moon, to build colonies in the moon, to build satellites in space, to build entire civilization, floating cities between planets, orbiting the sun. We got to start from somewhere because what happens most of the time is what happens most of the time is that students have no clue why they're learning all that stuff. They just don't. They keep asking the teacher, why am I learning this stuff? And the teacher has to explain, well, you're learning this stuff because we want to land the man on the moon. And they say, oh, really? Never thought about that. Yes, you're learning this stuff so that we can have a cure for all diseases. Oh, really? You're learning that stuff so that we can end poverty. So that's the type of thing the students need to understand. But then the student can say, well, but it's not going to depend on me. I'm not going to do anything like that. And then the teacher should say, no, that's what you think. Who knows? Maybe one day you will be in charge of something big, and we have to prepare you for what might happen. And a student can say, no, I don't think so. That's never going to happen. I just don't care. And then you can say, well, you should care because you're part of the community. You are an element in this grid. You are a citizen of this great nation. So it's this type of discussion, of argument, that is important for teachers and students to have. We should have respect, not only respect between students and teacher, but also between students. Communication, ancient Greek philosophy, communication, dialogues. Now, there's also one thing that is important before I end this video is for you to be open to opinions. I don't want to listen to that because I completely disagree with what he or she is saying. Well, you have to understand one thing. Try to be humble. Maybe in that mass that you completely disagree with, there might be something useful. So you should be open to hear other opinions too. Might find some gold mixed in that silver and bronze. See what I'm saying? So you got to give it a chance to your neighbor, to the person that lives next to you. It's important to be open-minded. And one thing to remember is that we live in a one world. We live in a civilization as a whole. Yes, we speak different languages. We live in different continents. When here is day, over there is night. When it's morning somewhere, it's evening somewhere, it's afternoon, and somewhere else, it's midday now. It's a globe. But seen from far away, our world looks like a tiny little dot. So we should prepare education to a purpose, and we need to make sure the students know this purpose. Thanks for watching.